Now, have you ever wondered that maybe the single biggest reasons for your unhappiness, your hurts, your failures, your restrictions are all in your head? Now, I'm not saying that all of these emotions are imagined or anything. That's actually on the contrary. But what I'm actually saying is that the reasons why we face major challenges in our finances, in our academics, in our relationships are basically based on the fact that how we think about those things, or rather our mental orientation about those things, are, for lack of the right word, off. And due to a simple problem, which I like to call your limiting beliefs. Now, in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you all about what limiting beliefs are, how you can diagnose yourself from said limiting beliefs, and how you can actually overcome them in subsequent videos to come. Now, let's get into the video. Now, there were a lot of video ideas I could have actually gone with in the field of productivity and improvement, but I decided to actually go through with this one because this topic of limiting beliefs is one that personally fascinates me. At some point in my life, I actually had some personal scuffles with this problem of limiting beliefs, and I'm going to share a small story with you. During my high school years, I wouldn't really have termed myself a star student because, I mean, if we're being real with ourselves, I was actually quite average. But something happened during the last years of my high school that literally changed everything. Now, in high school back in Nigeria, there's actually an exam body that determined who got to go to university and who got to stay at home. Now, Nigerians will know this exam as JAMB, which is aka known for jamming people's lives, but that's by the way. I mean, I wrote the exam and I actually passed. But now, the first time I actually wrote the exam, I got a score of about 218. Then I technically passed, but there was a slight problem. I wanted to study and the competition was fierce. Now, I didn't know this at the time because, I mean, I just graduated from high school and I was quite naive. I mean, part of my head was in the clouds. I really didn't comprehend the level of competition that went into actually studying medicine. Now, at this point, I believe we can both imagine the obvious. I actually didn't get in for what I applied for. It was during that year that I realized something interesting. I had some deep-seated limiting beliefs. That year hurt like hell because, I mean, your friends were going to school and you were like staying back home. I mean, it was quite depressing in a way, and I actually started second guessing my decision to forgo that year. But during that time, I actually did a lot of soul searching, and it made me discover some set of beliefs that literally limited my true potential as a student and even in general in life. And in hindsight, the last time I wrote the exam, I actually ended up scoring about 326 over 400. Technically, from the 1.8 million students that write that exam, only about 0.06% end up getting 300 and above. So there's a question in your head right now. What changed? Now that's the whole point of this video. I'm going to be sharing with you how you can diagnose yourself of limiting beliefs and how I actually changed my beliefs. Now in this chapter of the video, I'm going to be sharing with you what limiting beliefs really are. What is a limiting belief? A limiting belief is basically a thought or a state of mind that you think is the absolute truth and stops you and others from doing certain things. Now, these beliefs do not actually always have to be about yourself. They can actually be about your interactions with the world and your interactions with others. They can actually significantly hamper what you are able to achieve. Now, examples of such beliefs can be, they are X than me. Now, this is a very common belief that actually tends to limit a lot of people from achieving what they could potentially achieve because deep down, somewhere in their psyche, they think they are not able to attempt something because they imagine or perceive a demographic of people doing that as maybe smarter than them, or maybe they are richer than me, maybe they are more confident than me. So people that do that, I am not able to match up with whatever quality or X quality they seem to have and I do not have. Now, this limiting belief is actually quite deceiving because most times the people that we perceive are X than us, most times we actually do not know who these people are and we just create a facade that these people have this thing more than me. And it's actually a barrier that we actually create for ourselves that prevents us from doing a lot of things or applying to a lot of things. Now, another way that limiting beliefs can actually play around with your mind is when we fall into the belief of saying they cannot do something because they are something. Now, this limiting belief actually transcends ourselves into a certain demographic. Let's say I like listening to rap and I see a white guy trying to rap and I say he cannot rap because he's white, or they cannot do something because they are or they cannot be somewhere because they are something, whatever it may be. Now, this limiting belief actually stems from a fundamental flaw on how we believe the world works or how we think it works. And sometimes this can actually even be imposed on ourselves, because if you happen to fall under a certain group and on your subconscious level, you believe that this group of people can't do something because they are something, you have automatically limited yourself and you may not even know it's there. Now, another way a limiting belief can actually occur is when we say the word I can't. Most people shortchange themselves from doing some things because they imagine that they can't. There's a particular quote which I heard from Henry Ford which says, if you believe you can, or if you believe you can't, you are probably right. And when already you have a belief that says, oh, I cannot fully understand this subject because it's complicated, or you believe you can't date a particular girl because she's out of your league, now this belief has multiple ways of rearing its ugly head to prevent you from doing what you could potentially have been doing. Now, this belief was actually one of the many beliefs that I had to break to help me to accomplish some of the things I've accomplished so far. Because I used to believe that I couldn't study for more than 3 hours, and 4 hours was just me pushing it. And until I actually discovered something which I'm going to share with you later in this video or in subsequent videos, how I managed to break that. Now, another way that limiting beliefs can actually come about is when we make the statement, it's not up to me, so it's not worth the effort. Now, this is what psychologists like to call learned helplessness. Now, most times we delegate our power to enforce change to things beyond us because we do not want the responsibility of actually enforcing the change. Now, if you're a student, it could actually go along the lines of, I cannot be good at a particular subject because I have a bad teacher in that subject. Now, why this belief is so limiting is because of said teacher, we have completely relegated ourselves to never understanding that subject. Now, I fell into this thing once because actually, this is something I actually keep personal, but one of the many reasons why I even studied medicine in the first place and not engineering was because I had a bad math teacher. Now, back in high school, I was actually an average student in a lot of things, but physics was one of the subjects that I was actually quite decent in physics. And it's quite ironic that somebody is quite good in physics and is a completely different story when it comes to math. And because of that said belief, I had a bad teacher, so I can never be good in math. That actually, I will not lie, it's kind of like limited my options to much more biologically-ish courses and stuff like that. And if I knew then what I knew now, I'm not sure if I would actually be studying medicine in the first place. But that's a story for another day, and thank God the belief is gone. But imagine if you still have this belief and you actually could potentially limit yourself from a wider variety of options because of that same belief working in your mind. Now, in this chapter 3, I'm going to be talking about how limiting beliefs come about in the first place. Now, I want you to pay close attention because when you know the source of a problem, it's going to be a whole lot easier to actually diagnose the solution to that problem. Now, there are a variety of ways that self-beliefs can actually originate, but I'm going to hone in on 4 major ways that we can actually fall into this trap of self-limiting beliefs. Now, the first origin of self-limiting beliefs is what I call your personal experiences. Now, this is because self-limiting beliefs actually are there for a purpose. And sometimes the purpose in which they were initially created for has already been completed, but it's still there. Now, to help you further understand how your personal experiences can actually lead to your limiting beliefs, I'd like to share a little analogy. Now, take for example, you are in a jungle and you're posed with the problem of trying to cross a river to get to the other side. And you need to create a raft to get to the other side. So you get working. You start chopping wood, you start chopping down trees to make a raft. You try using natural ropes like vines to build your raft. And it's not pretty, but eventually you build a raft and you get to the other side. Now, instead of dropping this raft right on the riverbank, you decide, oh, okay, wait, I think I might need this raft somewhere along the way of this jungle expedition. So you decide to carry a 15 kg raft with you as you traverse this jungle. Now, that's the same way limiting beliefs work. Maybe at some point in your past, maybe you were bullied, and to actually escape bullying, you decided to create a limiting belief of, I'm going to believe that I'm shy, so I do not stand out too often. And when I do not stand out too often, I'm not bullied as much as when I decide to show myself too much. And so you adopt this belief of shyness. And let's say you finish primary school and you are in a new environment and this belief no longer serves you. And instead of actually being a much more confident fellow, you tend to withdraw in your shell and actually miss out on a lot of amazing opportunities that you could have potentially have utilized, but because of that belief that you developed in primary school or in kindergarten, you actually prevented yourself from a lot of things. Now, another way that limiting beliefs originate is actually through your hereditary experiences. In layman terms, your family. Now, this is because social interactions with your family, be it your mother, your father, your sister, your grandmother, your uncles, is basically, for most of us, the first experience of interactions with other people. And sometimes when this set of people have certain beliefs about about how the world works, they automatically infuse it to us. Now, a good example, now this is a personal example, if your family has a thing about water, if at the mention of water, or let's say swimming pools, rivers, or oceans, they actually automatically enter fight or flight mode and be like, oh my God, never you in your life enter water because you're gonna die. Now, if you grew up in a family that have this hereditary experience of seeing water in a bad light, you're inevitably going to see water in a bad light. And it's going to take a lot of effort to actually break out of that belief, because I, for one, I eventually learned how to swim at the age of 24. Babies learn this while they are just a year old. Yeah, we've come a long way actually. Now, another way that limiting beliefs can actually originate is through fear. Now, this is actually one of the most common ways that limiting beliefs actually do originate, because most times, the most common fear that people have is a fear of failure. And when people have this fear, it actually even stops them from trying in the first place. You are actually going to find it difficult to start anything new, because if you are scared of failing, what is the easiest way to never fail anything in life? Never start anything new. And subconsciously or consciously, you're actually going to move tooth and nail to actually stop yourself from failing by not really starting anything. And the fourth way that our self-limiting beliefs actually originate is through our social circle. Now, this was actually the origin of my self-belief of not being able to read more than 4 or 3 hours at a go. Now, this is because the friends I had at the time throughout my high school, we actually never read more than 3 to 4 hours at a time. And anytime we even tried to push it, we just didn't. And while in my year of not being in school, I actually met some new friends that changed this belief, because in hindsight, I actually realized that they had a lot more drive than me, because they actually wanted to get in school that year. And these guys were hungry for it. We could literally spend all night reading together. And when you are in an environment where reading for less than 6 hours is seen as weakness, if you actually still want to remain in that environment, at some point you're going to have to keep up the pace. And that was actually what broke that limiting belief I had before, because the origin were my friends, and the origin of my empowering belief that broke that limiting belief was actually a new set of friends. And with that said, that's actually what's going to lead us to our next video. How do you overcome limiting beliefs? And guys, if you like this video, please don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps with the algorithm. And if you enjoyed this video, I think you're going to enjoy the next video, which is going to be about how you can overcome limiting beliefs. And if you're watching this video the week I uploaded it, okay, I think you're going to wait till next week to actually watch the video. But until then, I think you're actually going to love the video about how you can multiply your focus. And guys, remember to always keep it real. Bye guys. What are you waiting for? Click on the video. What are you waiting for?